welcome to Kali Tribune podcast. In this episode, we'll talk about return of the soul, that is to say, return of the term soul as a relevant part of public discourse. Now, there is a great significance in this, I think, but also I have to say in advance that this is more like talk about trends, not about something that I can prove conclusively. So this will be somewhat off-handed discussion. However, and nevertheless, I would recommend before going into this podcast to check the notes I put forward. That is to say, some podcasts and texts that are very good for understanding in advance what I'm about to talk about here. That's because this problematic is kind of not widely recognized yet, and in such things, in such phenomena, it's very hard to maybe to get a grip what's going on and what I am talking about and where this comes from. So best thing to do is to have some foundation already. So first start spelling doom by Utikate. Utikate is a Croatian author, and this is my translation of one of her texts on LGBTIQ, for which she is a resident expert. Now, why this? Because a return of the soul is, as we shall see, closely connected to LGBTIQ, and Utikate's analysis of the acronym is, in my opinion, conclusive. And there's one thing you just have to understand about LGBTIQ, and it is expressed in most simple terms. I couldn't do it better. So that's very important. The other thing is my podcast on the soul. This is the answer to readers' questions about what is soul and so on. What's the place of the soul in metaphysics and how traditional metaphysics understood soul. It's important because this notion of soul I also consider to be conclusive, not because I invented it, but because it's kind of a notion of soul that is on the surface Aristotelian, but is in fact the combination of these medieval and ancient understandings and analysis of this being we call soul. So those things in advance, because as I said, soul comes to us, back to us through LGBTIQ. Now, what this means and how I got this idea at all. I noticed in the Anglophone Western, let's call them alternative or dissident media, as they like to call themselves, who are against this transgender revolution, that opponents of transgender are starting to object that transgender activists, or even more those that call themselves in inverted commas transgender people, mind you, transgender does not exist at all. It is not a thing. Read Utikate as I recommended, and you will understand why. They are using the term soul. They say that soul does not correspond to body in their case. That they are suffering great pains because their souls are in wrong bodies. Now, mind you, why is this important? Because soul is not considered to be a relevant object of science or knowledge. Soul does not exist, in a word, according to contemporary principles, contemporary academia, contemporary art, contemporary media. According to contemporary people, a good majority of them, at least where I stand, This is not the case, although people don't think about it, but people still have intuition that they are, in fact, composites of body and soul, but don't know, which is quite normal, what this means. You cannot know that intuitively. You can know that it exists intuitively, but to understand what exists, you have to work on it. But it is not the case everywhere. And of course, in these oracles of that form the public, that form the epoch, and ideas followed that are followed by people, and that make the epoch what it is, soul is out of the question. Anything that is transcendent, although soul is not really transcendent, it's quite mundane thing, is out of the picture. So how come it comes back? This is what really surprised me, I must confess. This is one of those moments that you can call uncanny, unbehagen. Because what is interesting is that soul comes back on the public scene through transgender. That is to say, through idea that is completely inverse of everything that traditionally was held as true. Idea which is inversion, that is far worse than materialism. And now we come to the crux of the problem. Those who are combating, so they like to call it transgender, that is to say, fighting with shadows, take offense at this and concentrate their arguments against transgender as kind of transgender being some kind of revival of religion. And that they, on the other hand, and they are mostly these superficial ex-new atheists and such, they hold facts and logics, so-called. And by facts and logic, of course, they mean this is, well, they never mind. They mean sense experience and description of sense experience. These are not facts and logics. Soul is also a fact, and you need logic to understand it. So that's not to put too fine point upon it, bullshit. But never mind. This is what they're trying to do. So, first reason why this is done is because LGBTIQ is spider web. When you get into the spider web, you cannot go out. You can break it with a wave of your hand, but most of those people are entangled. I mean, by these liberals, English liberals, like I don't know, that trigonometry podcasts and whatnot, conservatives, whatever, most if not all that you can hear speaking on internet. They want to have their cake and eat it too. That is to say, they want to have right on the abortion on demand, same-sex marriages and so on, but they don't want transgender. Well, it doesn't go like that. When you have LGBTIQ, you have to go through all the letters, and each next letter destroys everything that previous letter accomplished. It's a hell where everybody is torturer and tortured. All you can do and all you must do to be relevant in any sense is step out of it. Anyway, but the argument is interesting. How they are deluding themselves that they can split LGBTIQ in two halves. They accuse these she-males or whatnot to reintroduce, to being a religious cult. And of course, religious cult is based on what these very undereducated and quite frankly stupid people do, is that terms like soul and so on naturally come with that. Well, no, because soul is the subject of metaphysics. To be more precise, it's more like subject of physics in the ancient sense, but not in modern, of course. But never mind that. These are some subtle distinctions. They say, in combating transgender soul brothers and sisters, with an idea that there is nothing than brain and its functions. A function of the brain, in this sense, in which you can understand brain as something analogous to the soul, is consciousness. Consciousness is completely secondary phenomena. I talked about it a lot. You cannot bring anything. Consciousness cannot be origin of anything. It is originated itself. A material thing cannot reflect into itself. Consciousness is not reflection. Soul can reflect, mind can reflect, because they are material. Immaterial thing can get back into itself. When we say that we introspect, that this is what we do. It's very simple, and you really have to, if you want not to see that, there has to be a deliberate act. You have to not want to see that in order not to see it. Just take a note, please. So this is nonsense, in my opinion, at least. So they are defending from the metaphysics, in fact, resurrected metaphysics, because LGBTIQ is metaphysics, inverted metaphysics. They are trying to fight metaphysics with the principles of science from the 19th century, mind you, from biology and physics and so on. 19th century things. That's partly because most of those people are not very well educated in the history of science, in philosophy and so on. They are just people that used to chat on internet and that was savvy enough to create these popular podcasts and so on, but they are not very well informed. But also they don't have good motives. Their motive is to, as I said, to keep their cake and eat it too, and this will not pass. So they are entangled in this LGBTIQ. But what are consequences of this? What are trends? What are implications? This is why I do this podcast. Well, implications are dire. There is one thing that people who are starved for spirit in the age that is built upon previous materialistic age, because this is not a materialistic age, when they hear that soul is coming back, making a comeback, this is something that is initially considered to be cause for joy. Quite understandably so, because all of the sudden you are vindicated. If you are Christian, if you are Catholic, you feel like, and really are that, you feel like maybe things will get back into position where this will become normal. No, this is the opposite of that. Return of the soul, it's very important from whence things come, especially in metaphysics. I always repeat that. Are they coming from below? Are they coming from above? Creation is from above. All the light, all the truth, to paraphrase Dionysius Areopagita, is from the Lord of Light, from above, not from below. In best case scenario, what comes from below are prayers and thoughts of men. And this is not best case scenario. Man cannot resurrect his belief in the soul. You know, things like noticing some things and not noticing other things are not entirely of man's doing. They are part of zeitgeist, and human beings don't create zeitgeist. They are entirely. The problem is that this is inverted understanding of soul. So the understanding of the soul in transgenders is nothing like what Aristotle or Aquinas would understand it. So in Aquinas, for instance, soul and body are identical. Now I'm referring to my podcast. I won't go deep into this. Listen to it if you don't know what I'm talking about. They are together but distinct. But this also means that you cannot really be born in the wrong body. You are born into that in which you are born, and you are responsible for it. Your soul is an act of that body, the form of the body. You cannot, this is you, both those things. However, this does not mean that this body cannot be complete screw up, even in the case of transsexuality, but transsexuality is not transgender. Transsexuality is a rare symptom that used to be treated in psychiatric care, and now it's not, as far as I know, because they put transgender instead of it. Transgender is something completely different. Transgender negates the relevance and existence of corporeal sexuality. Transsexuality does not do that. Transsexuality is a kind of psychiatric disorder. Yes, disorder, and such a good word. Psychiatric disorder where you cannot accept cannot live comfortably with your biological sex. In transgender, it's opposite. No, it's not the case. In transgender, you have a right to be in whatever gender you please, on the infinite spectrum from male to female. There is in fact no male and female as a binary in transgender. This is something that most people don't understand. They sell it first as a disorder that has to be treated. Well, let's help people, especially kids. But it's not, it's going further. So now in psychiatric manuals, the idea that transgender would be something that a medical condition is completely jettisoned. It's understanding, it's anthropological understanding of man as a sexless being. Transsexuality is not that, obviously, because something is not good with your sexuality. You need physician's help. Obviously, sexuality is real for you. So transsexuality has nothing to do with LGBTIQ. Let's make a note, and very important distinction. So what they do with soul, so you can have soul and be transsexual and suffer because body is constituted from elements that come from the outside. Soul is not free from the body in this world. It is somewhat burdened by it, somewhat ennobled by it. It all depends. But in transgender, the idea is that soul is completely autonomous from the body. That's how I see it. And that body is kind of raw material you can work with. Now, as a matter of fact, you have to have soul for something like this, not consciousness. At first I thought they say soul mean consciousness, because they start from a materialistic point of view, from the science that is completely focused on matter, and what is under matter, and what matter consists of and dissolutes in. And now we are in the phase of dissolution, hence the materialism does not apply anymore. Anyway, but no, it doesn't work, because consciousness is secondary, as I said. You have to have something primary in which you can seat your will and your intellect. This is soul. And this is immaterial, and they know it's immaterial. Their opponents are much dumber, those people fighting against transgender to save gay kids from sterilization. That's another article that I put in the notes about LGBTIQ and the hypocrisy of people that criticize it from liberal standpoint. But it's also a story in itself. So they have to use soul. Those guys who are against them are dumb. They are anachronistic. They use 19th century physics against metaphysics. Well, that's like using, I don't know, slingshot against F-16 fighter. You're dead meat. They cannot even recognize what the metaphysics is. While most people, uh, barely literate, can do that because they know the hierarchy, they intuit the hierarchy of things. And they intuit, and I can say this for LGBTIQ, they intuit the great danger in it. Some people don't, and those people who don't are very far off on the way towards perdition, in my opinion. And I noticed that there are people who even understand. They understand what it is. And as I said, I put in the notes, reduplicate. It's very simple. I don't usually advocate for simplicity because it's very, very seldom that things are simple, and things that are not simple cannot be explained simply. This is this is Hollywood logic. No, it doesn't work like that. But in this particular case, it works because this LGBTIQ is a deductive system of metaphysics. Deductive, I say, because it's in abstraction. For instance, Thomas Aquinas' metaphysics is neither system nor deductive, whatever some would-be experts might want you to think. This thing is, and so it's very simple to explain. It does not mean I always like to promote when somebody is doing good things. So what we have here is return of the soul under the aspect of evil. Because transgender is evil. Everything is LGBTQ IQ is evil. In final consequence. What could be significance of this? Well, significance of this is that we seem to be, I'm talking of trans here, as I said, we seem to be coming on the level playfield of postmodernity, where you simply have everything laid out before you. It's kind of like a revelation of truth of the epoch. What I mean to say is, in the end, I think the consequence will be that you will, when you lose your soul to perdition, you will know what you are losing, and you will do it by your own will. I think this is the significance of this, and I think this is the logic that brings it forth. And this is very dark logic, but very true also. Anyway, that would be a talk about trends. No need to go too far afield. Thank you for your attention. This is Branko Malic of Kališević signing out.